Hello and welcome back, and today I'm going to be speaking to you about why it's not too late to start growing your own food right now, this year. And it's currently July if you're watching in years to come, and I'm going to talk to you today about some of the seeds that you can sow in July and August that means you can have, well, one, winter harvests, and you can also start having a garden that's producing you food, and you start to be leading more of a sustainable lifestyle. As you know, I've got a full garden, but you may only have an empty pot or two, and that's fine. So just grow whatever you want from this video, or there's many other videos on YouTube all about sort of the seeds you can grow in July, and just look it up at what you can grow and fill in the space that you have. So for example, today I'm going to be doing a succession sowing of Swedes later, and there's just loads of things you can sow in this month, which I'm going to be going through later on this video. Before we get started, I'd like to make sure that you've gone down below, hit the subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon next to it, and clicked all to make sure you're notified next time I upload a video. So the first thing you can still plant in July and August is dwarf beans. And I've not actually growing any dwarf beans this year because I sort of forgot to get the seeds. I've got some climbing beans, so runner beans I've got, and I think I've got some French climbing beans as well. But French and dwarf beans you can grow now, and the seeds are really cheap, so give this a go. And they're also really delicious. I love growing beans because they're probably one of my favourite vegetables to eat as well. So you can also start growing things that you might want to have in salads. So for example, beetroot's a good one. So you can multi-sow beetroot, and multi-sowing is a great way to get the most out of your space. So plant 3 or 4 maybe, or even 2 or 3 in a clump in a module tray, the seeds, or in a hole in the ground, and then they'll push each other out, and then you pick the biggest one and the others will keep getting bigger then. And you can also plant other salad things like lettuce, but make sure you plant it in a shaded or cooler spot of the garden, because if we get hotter temperatures, big if we get hotter temperatures this month, then they may go to seed and they may bolt, which isn't a good thing because then the leaves go bitter. So just make sure you plant it, so maybe plant it in the shade of some beans or in the shade of some shrubs that you've got. So I've got some lettuce and some kale actually that I planted last year. And normally kale would have bolted in about February to April time, but I've had this in the shade of a pampas grass and it's still growing strong now and we're still harvesting. So there's no reason why you can't last plants for ages if you plant them in the shade. And with the lettuce, what I would do is I would pick the outer leaves, don't pick the whole head, even if it's the one that's meant to be picked as a head. Pick the outer leaves and it'll keep getting taller, but you'll get a more continuous harvest out of it and a more prolonged harvest. So another thing that you can sow is brassicas, or most brassicas. Some of them might be a bit too late, but things such as spring cabbage, and I've also planted some kale this month actually, and things like kohlrabi that take less time. And I'm also going to be planting Swedes, which are also brassica, later as I said. And this is my kale bed, and I've also got kohlrabi here. And this is, I planted these late July actually, and these are the kale and cabbage seedlings that I've got left over, and I think I'm going to put these just wherever there's space basically, because that's the way I garden, and I have a mental plan, and then I just sort of go by that, and if things don't work out then I'll move things around. But my garden's actually doing quite well this year. We've got a lot of kohlrabi starting to heart up as well, or bulb up, and I love the look on here. When it's been raining like today, how the water rolls off the brassica leaves because they've got like a nanoparticle sort of film on them. This is just, I find it really fascinating. And there's actually 2 other things in this bed here that you can plant in July or in summer, which are carrots, which could be the succession sown ones, and I've got some here which I planted a long time ago, but the soil here is not great for carrots, so that's why they're taking so long to grow. And these are interplanted with some broad beans which I started a couple of weeks ago. And these broad beans here, hopefully, if my planning's gone right, I should be picking these carrots when the broad beans are starting to get taller, before they smother out the carrots, because some of the carrots are starting to get big and swell now. So hopefully, yeah, this bed will be a good harvest this year, because I've already harvested about 50 onions from it, and they're hanging in the back porch of the house now, and then these broad beans will take over from them, well, after the carrots have. And again, I've got kohlrabi. I had too many plants, if you can't tell, and they're plonked in everywhere. And some rocket as well that we use for salad. Something that I'm trying, which is an experiment, and you could also try it too, there's no reason why you can't, is where I've planted my mange tout and my peas here, and this is if you've got an established garden already. I've got these rows of, there's peas here and mange tout here. I started picking the mange tout, but what I've done is over the last month or two I've been putting some mange tout and pea seeds in the ground around the base of these rows, so that basically what will happen, hopefully, if the plan goes right, is these will grow up and they'll flower later than these. So when these are coming to an end, the others will be flowering, ready for a continued harvest. I'm not sure if this will work, but it's worth giving it a go, isn't it? And it's only a few seeds I had left over, so why don't you give this a go as well, whilst you're growing your mange tout and peas. So just put some in the base. I just push them in the ground at the base. Try and find somewhere where there might be lights on the outside of the row maybe, and just give it a go. These should grow up, but I'm not sure whether they'll be smothered by the others. But it's worth a go, as I said. There's no reason why I shouldn't give it a go. And I've also been mulching around the middle as well, to try and keep the weeds down. And if you want to establish your food garden for even longer, so you have prolonged harvests through the years, and what you can do is get some perennials, so like these fruit bushes here, these currants, or you could get raspberry canes or strawberries. You could get anything like that, any perennial, or rhubarb even, or asparagus maybe, just get established, because it takes quite a while. So just get anything perennial ready to take over from your annuals. So these will keep producing year on year, forever basically, as long as you look after them well. And you'll need to prune things like fruit bushes, but this is no problem, it's fine. I'll make a video later on in the year about pruning. And yeah, there's no reason why no one can grow perennials, because perennials are, I think they're pretty where I get a lot of my harvest from. So all of my fruit comes from perennials. For example, fruit trees, the raspberries, and these currants here. And I'm going to be making jam out of these currants very soon. But if I was you, I would get a good perennial garden set up, or perennials in your garden, so that when there's no annuals ready, you've got things like fruit ready, and rhubarb maybe, asparagus. We used to have rhubarb here actually, but it died in a drought and it hasn't come back. So I've planted this mini food forest here instead, and then hopefully maybe in the future I'll get some more rhubarb plants somewhere else. And something else you could do is you could plant in buckets, or maybe in the ground, you could plant some potatoes ready for autumn or Christmas time. And these are still my second earlies. This one's nearly ready and this bucket's still got a bit of growing to do. But what you can do is you can just plant them in the bucket. I've got a video about planting potatoes in the buckets as well, or later further back on my channel, quite far back now, probably about 2 months ago. And I've also got plants in the ground as well, but they're not doing as well as the ones in the buckets. And you can plant sort of some late ones. I think this Duke of York is a good one for late sowing or late planting, and that's what I planted last year, but it didn't do too well because it got blight, which is what happens in the end of the summer. So it's a bit hit or miss whether that'll be a good harvest, but you could give it a good go and hopefully it'll work for you. And I'm going to be harvesting these potatoes probably in the next week, ready to have as new potatoes for dinner. And while it's too late to sow tomato and pepper seeds, you may be able to find a shop or garden centre where they're selling already established plants, and this will probably be the determinate tomatoes, and these will be like cherry tomatoes probably. That's mostly what happens, but you might get some indeterminate ones, but the determinate ones, which are the ones that go short and are bush varieties basically, and you might find like hanging baskets in some supermarkets that they're selling them in. There's quite a lot, but these here are tomatoes I grew from seed, and these are indeterminate, so they just keep growing taller, and you can tell that until you pinch them out, that is, which I've done now. And they've just finished flowering here, so they're hopefully, quite excitingly, there'll be some tomatoes soon. The peppers aren't doing so well. They were being eaten by something, and then they had a bit of aphid damage and everything like that. but they're starting to, there's a pepper coming on this one. The other ones haven't got any peppers because the flowers keep dropping off, but it's not the end of the world, it's worth a go, isn't it? I've also been taking cuttings for my tomatoes for a later harvest, so go looking for some ready established or some bigger plants that you can grow for tomatoes from the supermarket or from a garden centre, because they should be able to have some that you'll be able to grow and get a bit of harvest. It won't be as big of a harvest by the end of the year, but it'll be big enough. And if you've got a heated polytunnel or greenhouse, that's even better because you can prolong the season. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, if you did, like, comment and subscribe. And if you really enjoyed it, share it with your friends to share the love of gardening. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you next time. So I just wanted to show you this dwarf sunflower here. Just look how big the leaves are in this. I never expected this to get so big. This is home saved seeds from last year, and it's actually gotten quite big. It's gotten so big, it's been pouring with rain for the last 2 days, and all of the soil underneath is still bone dry, and that's because the leaves have been shading it from the rain. That's just crazy. And there's a flower head coming on it, and it actually looks like the flower's going to be tiny, which is quite funny because the leaves are huge.